Charlie Chaplin was a wonder in the film industry. His significance is truly unmatched, and many call him the greatest filmmaker of all time. Charlie Chaplin was born to London stage performer parents. That said, he himself carried on the talent, started performing at a young age. Unfortunately, his father passed away and his mother fell immensely ill, leaving Chaplin in poverty. During this time, he joined and went on tour with a youth clog dancing troupe known as the Eight Lancashire Lads. At around age 11, he left his early tapping days to pursue opportunities as a boy actor. One in particular that began his career in film starting in 1908 was his entrance into a prestigious British comedy troupe known as the Fred Carnell Repertoire Company, in which they performed mainly silent slapstick sketches. At the time, comedy relied almost entirely on physical movement. No dialogue, just exaggerated motion and visual gags, with a continuous amount of laughter brought on by his performances on tour, principally as the drunk in the sketch A Night in an English Music Hall. A representative of the New York Motion Picture Company took short notice of Chaplin's talent and offered him a contract with Max Sennett, Canadian actor and film director, and his company, Keystone Studios. Chaplin signed the contract on a day in September of 1913 and gained a salary of around $150 a week. Due to this contract, he packed his bags and left for Los Angeles to star in his first film, Making a Living, which was released on February 2nd, 1914, thus beginning his profession in the film industry. Charlie Chaplin revolutionized the film industry by co-founding United Artists, implementing a multitude of cinematographic techniques, and creating impactful films. To start, United Artists was marvelous in the fact that it allowed actors to produce, finance, and distribute their own films, giving them creative freedom all around. United Artists was founded by Mary Pickford, Charlie Chaplin, Douglas Fairbanks, and D.W. Griffith, and according to the Mary Pickford Foundation, trades called it, quote, a rebellion against established producing and distributing arrangements, unquote. By this, they mean that these artists found production/distribution companies as threats because they were taking advantage of artists' salaries, and according to Chaplin film by film, quote, the new studio would be run by the filmmakers, allowing them to indulge their creativity without being beholden to distant management figures who knew nothing of their art, but who only cared about the bottom line. Originally, Chaplin worked with the studio First National. First National was owed 5 more films of Chaplin's contract. Chaplin wanted to increase the quality of his films, and a higher quality meant higher funds for First National. Chaplin argued that if he was going to increase the quality of his pictures, he, too, should get an increase in funding, but the company turned him down, saying that the quality didn't matter, for anything with the Charlie Chaplin name would be a hit at the box office. He was indifferent to the idea that he was just, quote, a product, unquote, to make First National money, so he was undoubtedly excited to join all the other wonderful filmmakers in United Artists. Some of the actors included in United Artists were Humphrey Bogart, Katharine Hepburn, Sean Connery, Gloria Swanson, etc. Next, Charlie Chaplin implemented a multitude of cinematographic techniques. He usually made himself the center of attention in his films. According to Bill Irwin in the Lawrence Journal World, he did this to, quote, help him hold the narrative together and keep the comedy about something, unquote. In other words, as director of his films, he had a vision. The best way to succeed in this vision was to fill the vision mostly on his own. Another technique that he used was a unique one. In most slapstick comedies at the time, filmmakers would make bigger or more powerful people suffer, and people would often laugh at this because it's ironic. But Charlie Chaplin did the opposite. He created his character, the Tramp, as more relatable so that audiences could laugh and resonate with him. But there's no character without a costume. Chaplin picked his costume for the Tramp carefully, with contradictions for comedy. In a film he made at Keystone, Mabel's Strange Predicament, he was told to choose his own makeup, and that he did. He said in his autobiography, quote, I had no idea what makeup to put on. I did not like my getup as the press reporter in Making a Living. However, on the way to the wardrobe, I thought I would dress in baggy pants, big shoes, a cane, and a derby hat. I wanted everything to be a contradiction. The pants baggy, the coat tight, the hat small, and the shoes large. I was undecided whether to look old or young, but remembering Sennett had expected me to be a much older man, I added a small mustache, which I reasoned would add age without hiding my expression. I had no idea of the character, but the moment I was dressed, the clothes and the makeup made me feel the person he was. I began to know him, and by the time I walked onto the stage, he was fully born, unquote. Chaplin's main priority in his films was to elevate the personality of his characters. Chaplin said, quote, we have no scenario. We get an idea, then follow the natural sequence of events until it leads up to a chase, which is the essence of our comedy. This method was edifying, but personally, I hated a chase. It dissipates one's personality. Little as I knew about movies, I knew that nothing transcended personality, unquote. In other words, he's saying that a chase is funny and all, but we know nothing about the character and what he or she stands for. On the set of Making a Living, quote, Chaplin wanted a character-driven film with a slower pace, while Henry Lerman, who helped direct Making a Living, insisted on fast knockabout. Chaplin was further confused by why scenes were shot out of narrative order. He had no previous film experience and had always rehearsed and performed his theatrical work in the proper sequence. Chaplin was devastated when he saw the final product and discovered what Lerman had edited, recalling, quote, although the picture was completed in 3 days, I thought we contrived some very funny gags. But when I saw the finished film, it broke my heart, for the cutter had butchered it beyond recognition, cutting it into the middle of all my funny business, unquote. Chaplin really cared about the characters of his films, which is what made them so impactful. Another brilliant tactic that he used to elevate his little tramp character was his movement. He would often over-exaggerate one body part at a time. Since his films were silent, it was up to his facial expressions and body language to make his films all the more impactful. He has many different walks that are designed for each characterization he presents in a film. Chaplin developed dozens of distinct walking styles, each expressing emotion, comedy, or struggle. Finally, Chaplin mentioned immensely that he used pathos in his film to put aside the comedy and make the films more meaningful. That being said, Chaplin put in his autobiography, quote, I can trace the first prompting of a desire to add another dimension to my films besides that of comedy. I was planning a picture called The New Janitor in a scene in which the manager of the office fires me. In pleading with him to take pity on me and let me retain my job, I started to pantomime appealingly that I had a large family of little children. Although I was enacting mock sentiment, Dorothy Davenport, an old actress, was on the sidelines watching the scene, and during rehearsal I looked up and to my surprise, found her in tears. I know it's supposed to be funny, she said, but you just make me weep. She confirmed something I already felt. I had the ability to evoke tears as well as laughter, unquote. This method he executed perfectly, which is why his films are so widely loved. Throughout his time, Chaplin created many impactful films. Some of his most impactful films are The Gold Rush, City Lights, Modern Times, The Tramp's, quote, retiring performance, unquote, where the impactful nature of industrialization is featured, and finally, The Great Dictator, Chaplin's most prominent work and first, quote, talkie, unquote, which is, by definition, a motion picture with synchronized sound, especially spoken dialogue. The Great Dictator is a film that subtly attacks the dictatorial essence of Adolf Hitler, in which Chaplin played 2 roles. 1, a Jewish barber, and 2, a dictator known as Adenoid Heinkel, which were ironically opposing characters in the movie. In each of his films later on, he nodded to some sort of real-life happening while also still providing brilliant works of art. Charlie Chaplin's political stance was satirical, meaning he used satire to attack injustices that the world faced at the time. For example, as I already mentioned, The Great Dictator mocked fascism and its absurdity during World War II. Despite the film being comedic, Chaplin took off his comical hat around the end of the film and gave a serious speech regarding unity, resistance against greed and hate that should be had, and the world that he desired.
Let us fight for a new world, decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. In the name of democracy, let us all unite!
The public absolutely adored and admired Chaplin's silent films' humor and his subtle nods to poverty and social class, until his later political outspokenness and alleged, quote, communist ties brought forth major backlash and controversy, turning this beloved figure into a disputed artist for many, but still beloved among millions. Charlie Chaplin was known for revolution by revolutionizing the film industry, reform by advocating many global conflicts to his films, and reaction because of his loyal and even today expanding audience.